We have before us the exact words of a Melchizedek. This book is a channeling direct from the source, people. The most profound revelation and channeling on the planet to this date. So, don't take my word for it. Let's examine, have an open mind. But you can see how many of these papers were literally written by Melchizedeks. Every single syllable and word is exactly how it is intended from these mighty beings. We're looking at the words of a Melchizedek today. This is the origin of ideals. So, right here, as you can see, this paper, this is on page 1133 if you're following along. This is called The Reality of Religious Experience. And it is presented by a Melchizedek of Nebadon, which is our local universe. That's the name of our local universe, with its roughly 3.5 million inhabited worlds, and it is still growing. So let's look at what the origin of ideals are. This could be something that somebody might debate over and say, well, is that just a concept, a human concept? Or is there something more fundamental to the human mind that we are tapping into when we hit on ideals? And remember, it is the ideals about deity and divinity which are important, not the ideas. The ideals meaning things like love, justice, those virtues, mercy, forgiveness, compassion. So let us read about the origin of ideals. Please like and subscribe, folks. We're going in on the Urantia book regularly here, and we're gaining some vast spiritual insight and wisdom. Then this stuff is helpful for our life. And you'll see how this Melchizedek really puts it into a framework for us that makes sense with our daily life. It isn't just some far-off thing. Okay, here we go. The origin of ideals. The early evolutionary mind gives origin to a feeling of social duty and moral obligation derived chiefly from emotional fear. Remember, this evolving aspect of religion is fear-based because it is primitive beings trying to understand the world around them and being afraid of things. But remember, we're learning a religion of love, and it's a personal religion. This book isn't to be a religion, but you're forming your own personal religion as each individual is to do that. So this is giving away from fear to love. The more positive urge of social service and the idealism of altruism are derived from the direct impulse of the divine spirit indwelling of the human mind. So he's revealing right there that there is a spirit that indwells each of us. This ideal of doing good to others, the impulse to deny the ego something for the benefit of one's neighbor, is very circumscribed at first. That's why it could be attributed to a fear-based thing. Primitive man regards as neighbor only those very close to him, those who treat him neighborly. As religious civilization advances, one neighbor expands in concept to embrace the clan, the tribe, and then the nation. And then Jesus enlarged the neighbor scope to embrace the whole of humanity, even that we should love our enemies. And there is something inside of every normal human being that tells him that this teaching is moral. Right. Even those who practice this ideal least admit that it is right in theory. So there's so much here on just that one small thing. Let's look at this again. So you have this, remember, fear, it starts off with fear. Now, I had somebody tell me recently that they said I had a criticism of the Bible saying that they teach a God to be feared. That's one of the key concepts in the Bible, which evolved from the days of Moses and that sort of stuff about this angry God, this jealous God, and we need to fear God. And the person said, well, yeah, sure, that's in the Bible, but there's also so much focus on the love of God as well. which is good. And he's correct. But the point is that if you have both of those concepts existing side by side, this fear, this number one poison on the planet that the forces of evil use to control human beings, that's in their book, teaching it side by side. Sure, there might be more focused on the love, and I'm not denying that. But the point is that if it's in there side by side, then somebody is free to garnish as much about the fear aspect as they are about the love aspect. So then they will then go on to, form this sort of animosity with their neighbor. And that's why we have all these religious wars. We have all these things. So they're just concepts, sure, that's great. But when that concept is part of the staple of your religion, it formulates what this person is going to do with their actions, right? And so if we look back at history, we have so much fear-based things going on with your wars and your guns and needing to arm yourself because you're afraid of your neighbor. And look at what Jesus did. Remember, we're learning and evolving here, folks. We're not crystallizing our spiritual creed. So no matter where you're coming from, it's always a day to enlarge upon that. And that's what Jesus did here when he taught the love of God, and also to have that neighborly concept embrace even your enemy. So your enemy might be, oh, that guy's out to get me. I better be afraid of him and arm him to his teeth. And Jesus said, no, just love the person. Don't you have faith? If you have faith, then what are you afraid and worried of? Those concepts should be removed from your mind, this worry type of thing. A peace which passes all understanding is what we're going for. So he's saying, Melchizedek is saying here, even though they practice that ideal the least, it's right in theory to say, isn't that the solution? Isn't the solution to get rid of all our guns? And somebody say, yeah, that is the solution. Yeah, that's right in theory. But if I do that, then I'm leaving myself vulnerable. But we're not vulnerable anymore, people, because we've crossed the threshold. We've become spiritual. And we understand that's what faith is. Okay? All men recognize the morality of this universal human urge to be unselfish and altruistic. It's in there. The humanist ascribes the origin of this urge to the natural working of the material mind. The religionist more correctly recognizes that the truly unselfish drive of mortal mind is in response to the inner spirit leadings of the thought adjuster. And the humanist is going to come up to a point where his human mind, which he thinks the ideals come from, are going to fall flat. They're going to come up to certain situations and certain things where remember, patience and tolerance and forbearance are very good things, but we need to go to the next step, which is transcendence. That's spiritual transcendence. Patience and tolerance will only get you so far. Unless you can really dig in deep and realize and understand this thought adjuster, if you're new, is the fragment of God that dwells within you, your spirit, in other words. When you can dig in deep and access that your morals are coming from here, that's when you wear the full armor of the divine. And you can really walk with that peace that passes all understanding and have your actions reflect that. And that's what it's about. But man's interpretation of these early conflicts between the ego will and the other than self will is not always dependable. Only a fairly well unified personality can arbitrate the multiform contentions of the ego cravings and the budding social consciousness. The self has rights as well as one neighbor. Neither has exclusive claims upon the attention and service of the individual. Failure to resolve this problem gives origin to the earliest type of human guilt feelings. It's not to say that you just need to literally give all of your possessions to the first homeless person you see. You can, let's say, mediate these two things, the self and the neighbor. And that's where this personality unification happens, when you are spiritual as well as philosophically minded, as well as having an understanding of science, right? You're unifying all of these aspects to come up with the best possible ways to go about your life. It's not the thing itself that is harmful or negative, it's the misuse or abuse of it. So it's not that you can't have a nice house, but it's like, well, am I going to buy golden coffee cup while this guy is dying in the streets, or spend billions on a car while this guy is dying in the street, whatever. Human happiness is achieved only when the ego desire of the self and the altruistic urge of the higher self, divine spirit, are coordinated and reconciled by the unified will of the integrating and supervising personality. The mind of evolutionary man is ever confronted with the intricate problem of refereeing the contest between the natural expansion of emotional impulses and the moral growth of the unselfish urges predicated on spiritual insight, genuine religious reflection. Look at that, people. The balance. The balance that achieves human happiness, which we all would enjoy. But it's not destroying the ego. That was what they tried to do in the Eastern, laying in the bed of nails and everything like that. You can combine them, all right? So you don't have to destroy all those ego desires. They have to be coordinated and reconciled. So it's not that one is a bad, evil thing that you need to destroy. The attempts to secure equal good for the self. But see, the problem here, folks, is not that we're not giving into our ego enough on this planet. It's in fact, we're not giving into the altruistic urge enough. Maybe some are. Maybe some have that where they say, no, I really do need to think of myself a little bit more. But for the most part, it's really more about the ego here. The attempt to secure equal good for the self and for the greatest number of other selves presents a problem which cannot always be satisfactorily resolved in a time-space frame. Given an eternal life, such antagonisms can be worked out. But in one short, folks, no matter how long you're living here, it's still short compared to eternity, human life, they are incapable of solution. Jesus referred to such a paradox when he said, "Whoever shall save his life shall lose it. But whoever shall lose his life for the sake of the kingdom shall find it." So you're seeking first the realities of the Spirit, the realities of God, and that is when you find yourself. But you're really trying to cling on to this purely human understanding of yourself and in the world, then that is when you're actually going to lose your life. The pursuit of the ideal, the striving to be godlike, is a continuous effort before death and after. The life after death is no different in the essentials than the mortal existence. It's a continuum here. Everything we do in this life which is good contributes directly to the enhancement of the future life. Real religion does not foster moral indolence and spiritual laziness by encouraging the vain hope of having all the virtues of a noble character bestowed upon one as a result of passing through the portals of natural death. That's your Christian understanding and Catholic. I did Jesus. All I got to do is Jesus, faith, 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 faith in Jesus. I don't have to be, I can try to be a good person, but it doesn't matter because I'm still going to go to the same place. What's the real motivation to make that decision to put down that bottle of vodka or whatever it is, if you're just going to end up in the same place as the people who are really trying to do self-mastery here? So a real religion, which we're forming here individually, it's about always trying to make the better choice, because you pick up on the other side where you leave off here. There's a planet in the world that correlates to where you have mastered. And then you continue your ascension. So it's not that you just stay there. You continue to grow no matter where you pick up. But wouldn't you rather advance here and now? True religion does not belittle man's efforts to progress during the mortal lease on life. Every mortal gain is a direct contribution to the enrichment of the first stages of the immortal survival experience. It is fatal to man's idealism when he is taught that all of his altruistic impulses are merely the development of his natural herd instincts. Remember, you're not being able to really go deep and find that wellspring of giving in love when it's just, oh, well, that's just some little impulse in my brain that I evolved because, the monkeys needed to survive in the jungle a million years ago. But he is ennobled and mightily energized when he learns that these higher urges of his soul emanate from the spiritual forces that indwell his mortal mind. So keep that when you say, hey, I really want to do something nice for this person, I want to be a good member of society, blah, blah, blah. You're accessing spirituality right then and there. It lifts man out of himself and beyond himself when he once fully realizes that there lives and strives within him something which is eternal and divine. So take that right now, folks, and write that on your heart and embed that in your mind. Something within you that is eternal and divine. And so it is that a living faith in the superhuman origin of our ideals validates our belief that we are the sons of God and makes real our altruistic convictions, the feelings of the brotherhood of man and women. So look at this. Living faith, people. Remember, faith is not like that Creedence Clearwater song, someday never comes. That's faith. You're going to see and feel and experience the products of your faith. It might take until the next life, or if you take it to the next step and really start to reach the Urantia state here on this planet, which I've had a glimpse of, just a small 10-second worth of, oh, wow, it's real. It's all real during meditation. But I had to earn it through exchanging vices for virtues. And we would want to earn everything that we experience in the universe. But it's going to happen. This is a short life in the flesh, people. That faith is just, I just have to live this faith forever, ever, and ever, and never get the rewards or reap the benefits from my faith. It's going to happen. It is going to happen. We believe they are sons of God and make real our altruistic convictions. So that's the living faith. Man in his spiritual domain does have free will. Mortal man is neither a helpless slave of the inflexible sovereignty of an all-powerful God. See, if we didn't have free will, you'd be a puppet of God. Why would God want puppets? He wants beings that want to follow, right? Just like if somebody didn't want to subscribe to my YouTube channel, I wouldn't want to say, no, I need to do that because I'm looking for numbers. No, this is about free will type of thing. I'd rather have one person who really, really is interested in this than 1,000 who are just doing it for, whatever. God nor the victim of the hopeless fatality of a mechanistic cosmic determinism. Man is most truly the architect of his own eternal destiny. So on the other hand, right, if you just had, if you were a mechanistic type of person who believed that then everything would be predetermined. Where would the free will eventually come from? You have the Big Bang, right? And it sets all of these molecules off spinning, and they all are going by the principles of physics. So where does free will enter the situation? Even within your mind, we understand that they're neuropeptides, and then you're having chemical impulses, and that there is actually, chemicals that are responsible for saying, oh, I need to eat, so I'm going to go over. So that's not a free will choice if you're a pure mechanistic cosmic person. If you're saying, oh, I want to eat this, well, that plant started growing during the times of the Big Bang because everything was spun off, right? And so it's such a, what is it called? A hopeless fatality, folks, if there's no God in the universe. But man is not saved or ennobled by pressure. This is important. Spirit growth springs from within the evolving soul. Pressure may deform the personality, but it never stimulates growth. Even educational pressure is only negatively helpful in that it may aid in the prevention of disastrous experiences. Spiritual growth is greatest where all external pressures are at a minimum. So keep that in mind. What can you do with your life to give yourself some more space to understand this growth, to understand spirituality? And we should seek that, because when you do, like Jesus said, forsake friends and family for the things of God. And he didn't say send them to hell or something like that. Prioritize. Those relationships will come back to you, but they will come back in a much more conducive way for your spiritual growth. They won't be the downsides and the fighting, because you will have that peace which passes all. You won't get mired up, like they say. You swim with cattle, you wind up with hoof and mouth disease. And so you're not going to swim with cattle. You're going to help uplift people who think and believe that they're only animals, to the point and say, no, you're actually indwelt by the divine God. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. Man develops best when the pressures of home, community, church, and state are least. But this must not be construed as meaning that there is no place in a progressive society for home, social institutions, church, and state. Have a sense of proportion. We don't need to go off into the meditative monasteries and not develop these sort of things, people. But don't make them, oh, I got to work 100 hours this week, or else figure out a way. You might need to have to think creatively in order to unwind from these pressures. See what maybe it's that you need to get solar panels so that your gas bill isn't high. You have to think outside of the box. But here, this is a good line about that. When a member of a social religious group has complied with the requirements of such a group, he should be encouraged to enjoy religious liberty in the full expression of his own personal, that's why this book isn't a religion, interpretation of the truths. This is just my interpretation of this. You can form your own. Read this on your own and see what thoughts come to you. Religious belief in the facts of religious experience. The security of a religious group depends on spiritual unity, not on theological uniformity. We always say that here. It's about unity, not uniformity. A religious group should be able to enjoy the liberty of free thinking without having to become free thinkers. The only reason that word is in our language is because there's not free thinking. That should just be the natural mode. You wouldn't even call it free thinking. You would just call it thinking if everybody shared that and that was fostered. There is great hope for any church that worship is the living God. That worships the living God, validates the brotherhood of man, and dares to remove all creedal pressures from its. Remember, what's a creedal pressure? If you don't, you're going to go to hell. That's creedal pressure. We don't have hell. Hell is it's a lower evolved fear concept. God wouldn't have hell in the universe. All loving would give more chances, and eventually if the person said, no, I don't want the chances, then they just simply cease to exist. What is the point of perpetuating somebody in an agonizing torture? You'd have to admit that the devil is just as strong as God. What the hell is that about? Forgive the pun there. Dares to remove from its members. There you go, folks. Philosophic coordination. This is all the reality of religious experience. So remember, you see, it's taking it into your home and your home life and everything like that. And it's saying, let go of these pressures. What's the pressure? Well, people might say, I need this pressure because this pressure is what I came and signed up for on earth. The people that believe that you have this soul contract and that you have to come here in order to experience the most possible pressure so that this is what I need for my soul to grow. Let go of that. It's not, but in doing so, have a sense of proportion. Don't say, abandon your family and go onto the beach and live on a beach like a beach bum. But the idea that we should be able to take a sigh and a breath, and also the procedure is that once you do understand that these ideals that you're doing, that you're striving for, are divine in nature, superhuman in nature, that will help you have the strength in order to find the perfect balance between the ego self and also what is the altruistic urge that we can, not out of fear, but simply out of love. All right, thanks for checking out the video. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.